Hey guys, got another little thing I can do a video on here. I bought this bike and noticed that the wheel is like really loose. If you can see how far that moves back and forth. The hub down here is just really loose. If it was just a little loose, I might just try adjusting the cones in a little bit. But as loose as this is, I think that potentially there might be something like maybe the bearings are really worn down there or something wrong with the cones or the races. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart, and if I'm going to pull it apart, I'm just going to go ahead and overhaul the thing. And I'm going to make a video of that. Okay, so I've got the wheel off the bike. I'm going to go ahead and remove the skewer. Okay, so before I go ahead and take this hub apart, I want to measure how far this axle sticks out beyond this lock nut here, so when I put it together, I can have both the axles, or both sides of the axle sticking out like that. Measure this, and it looks like this is sticking out about 4 millimeters. And ooh, that's interesting. This is loose, so this might be part of the problem right there. But it sticks out about 4 millimeters. And I want to measure the other side here, and that maybe sticks out about 2.5 millimeters. But this is tight. So my guess is somewhere one of these came loose and kind of came misadjusted, but I'm going to go ahead and take it apart anyway because I don't want to take it on faith that there's nothing wrong in there. So I'm going to take it apart, check everything out, and just go ahead and replace the bearings while I'm in there anyway. Okay, since this is loose, I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew it. There's the lock nut, and here's the cone. So there's the cone right there. Like pull the axle out. There's the axle, and then there's a lock nut and a cone on the other side as well, and they should both be the same on both sides, so I'm not that concerned. So I'm not that concerned about keeping them straight. Now there's like going to be a little dust cap in here. Pop this out. Let's see if we can get this out. There we go. A little dust seal. I can just dump them out, or I got a magnet here, so I'm just go ahead and grab all the bearings with a magnet, and there they are. Okay, the other side here, pop out the little dust seal, just pry it out, there it is there. There's all the bearings there, so just grab all those, pull them out, there they are. Okay, I still need to take this off the axle, so let me see, find a cone wrench that fits this. That's 14, too loose. So it looks like it'd probably be a 13. There we go, 13. And cone wrenches are really nice because they fit in these little narrow notches there. So you get a cone wrench where you couldn't use a crescent wrench to get in there, but you can use like a crescent wrench or adjustable wrench to go ahead and pull off the lock nuts. So once you get that loosened, pull this off. Oh, and it looks like there's a little washer in there too. I don't know if there was a washer on the other side. Oh, there it is. It was stuck to the lock nut. So the washer goes in between the lock nut and the cone, it looks like. And then pull this off. There we go. So now I just want to go ahead and clean up all these parts here. Okay, you may have seen it in some of my other videos, but I got a can here of paint thinner, and I'm going to go ahead and stick the parts in. You can go ahead and use whatever you want to clean these. Use a degreaser if you want. You scrub on them with soap and water if you want. But I like paint thinner for cleaning up all these old greasy parts. I think it just works a lot faster for cutting all this old grease and cleaning off all the parts. Okay, so then I could just take like a toothbrush here and just scrub on the parts a little bit, get them all cleaned up, get all the old grease all kind of cleaned up. There's all those parts. This one cone sort of looks like it might have been a little bit damaged. So I'm gonna have to go to the bike shop and see if I can go ahead and get a new cone. And this cone too looks like it might have like a little bit of wear just in the race there. I can see little notches in there. So I'm gonna have to see if I can get some brand new cones, how much they're gonna cost. And I got the bearings over here, and I'll go ahead and put those into a little plastic bag and take those to the bike shop. Okay, so I got the wheel up here again, and a little bit of paper towel just dipped in there with paint thinner on it. I'm going to go ahead and clean out the hubs in there, the races, and I can check those out. Look for damage. And they actually look pretty good. Let me try the other side. And these actually look pretty good too. So the races in here look pretty good. Not that I would want to go ahead and replace the hub, but they look good. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the bearings and probably the cones. I got to go to the bike shop tomorrow and pick those parts up. Okay, let's go ahead and put this back together. I stopped at the bike shop. I hadn't brought my axle, but they matched the original cones with 2 new cones. But unfortunately, I found that these new cones have a different threading than the axle. My bad. I should have brought the axle. I went to another local bike shop, took the axle, and found that the new cones were going to be about $8-9 each, and then another axle was going to be about $8. I'm like, Urgh. So I ended up opting not to buy new cones. Instead, what I did was I went ahead and cannibalized an old wheel I already had out in the garage, and the axle, same size, it's much better shape. This axle that had been in the wheel, some of the threads here had gotten chewed up a little bit, so I got this another axle here. It's the same threading, and I've got 2 cones that were on that axle. So I'm going to go ahead and use these, and these are in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and start putting this thing together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the cones, and I'm going to start threading it onto the axle. Take one of the washers, slide it on there. Take one of the lock nuts, put it on there. Then I want to go ahead and leave about 4 millimeters of axle sticking out there. So what I'm going to do is I'll adjust the lock nut right there, and then I tighten the cone against the lock nut. Then with the cone wrench and the adjustable wrench, go ahead and tighten these together. And I may need to fine tune that when I get the rest of the thing put together here. So I've got that set. So set that aside. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of grease. This is just like regular automotive type grease here, general purpose grease. And I'll put the grease down into the bearing race in the hub. I want it relatively thick because I want it to hold the bearings. Okay, and I did get brand new bearings here. And with this, it's a front wheel, and typically there's 10 bearings per side on the front wheel. That's pretty common. There's probably exceptions, but most of the wheels I've worked on, it's been 10 bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and stick 10 bearings and just stick them into the grease around the race. Rear hubs tend to have 9 slightly larger bearings. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the dust cap, the little dust seal. So I've got the bearings all in there. I'm going to take the dust seal and just kind of press it in gently, carefully, and just try to tap it in evenly around the edges. Now go ahead and take the axle, slide it down into place, and then flip the wheel over. That kind of hold the bearings in place. Then we'll go ahead and smear some grease down around this race down here. I've already put a little bit of grease in there, but I'll put a little bit more in there. Then it's time to drop the new bearings in. So I'm just going to drop them in around the race, around the axle. Okay, so there's all 10 bearings in place, and I'm going to go ahead and take the cone and slide this, or screw this onto the axle. And it might be helpful to go ahead and hold it from the other side. There, and now go ahead and push the bearings out into the race around the cone. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the dust seal on this side and press it down. And then just carefully tap it around the outside and try to get it down into place. Okay, now it's time to adjust the cone. You want the cone just barely touching the bearing. So you want it you don't want to tighten it so much that it locks down into the bearings and actually makes it stiff, but you don't want it so loose that you have play in the axle. You want it just somewhere between. And slide the washer on. Slide the lock nut on. Okay. I want it to be just a hair tight at this point, because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, hold the lock nut, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten the cone. Let's get the cone wrench on there. And tighten the cone up into the lock nut if I can. So I might hopefully hold the axle a little bit to keep it, make sure that it's the cone that's turning and not the lock nut. Now go ahead and feel it. Feel how smooth it goes. There we go. So the trick is to get the cone just tight enough that it's going to be up against the bearings, but not so tight that it's actually going to bind on them. And it feels like there's maybe just a hair of play. It just takes a little bit of trial and error just to get it just right. There, that's better. When you get it all done, moving nice and freely and no binding and no play, go ahead, lock it down, test it again. Done. Just put the skewer back on, put the wheel back on the bike, and I'm done.